It's Wednesday, March 9th, and this is now on HNN.
The body was in the standalone tub.
The manhunt continues for two murder suspects after a grisly discovery made at an East Honolulu home.
We've never had a serious crime like this happen before.
A woman who lobbied Kauai politicians is charged with acting illegally as a Russian agent.
I was hoping it would be sooner, but that's fine.
Hawaii sets a date for ending its mask mandate, becoming the last state to do so.
We've got these stories, plus mysterious bright lights in the sky perplex many Oahu residents. We'll tell you what we know, coming up on This Is Now. Hi everyone, thanks for watching This Is Now. You got Jonathan and Ashley right here in the H&N Digital Center. Want to get started with a really disturbing story. If you see these two men, you're asked to call 911.
Police say they are the murder suspects connected to a gruesome discovery at a home in the affluent and gated community of Hawaii Loa Ridge.
The 23-year-old male was identified as Juan Tejedor Baron, and the 34-year-old male was identified as Scott Hannon.
The men were actually questioned by police on Monday night, but then released. They have been described as non-residents, and authorities say they were last seen in Waikiki early Tuesday. Police say the elderly victim was found encased in concrete in a bathtub.
It's a standalone bathtub. It's an actual bathtub, a standalone bathtub.
And it was filled with concrete?
There was concrete and a layer of coffee on the top.
The victim is said to be the 73-year-old owner of the property where this gruesome discovery all unfolded. Now, officers first responded to the home on Monday morning for a welfare check in connection with a missing persons case. At the scene, detectives met Baron, who claimed to reside in the residence. On Tuesday afternoon, police searched the home and discovered the victim's body in the bathtub.
No, they didn't search the home initially. They checked the home was secured, and initially no one was home when the officers did the initial welfare check. It didn't appear suspicious at that time. I think it was when the missing persons returned, and that's when we realized that the 23-year-old was claiming to be the resident and the homeowner, which he was not.
Police have also said the victim and the younger suspect were in an intimate relationship. Neighbors expressed shock after hearing of the murder.
I think it's just absolutely terrible that happened. I mean, we've never had a serious crime like this happen before. We've heard of small robberies, but never to something at this degree.
Police said the victim's brother had filed a missing persons report. The two had not been in communication since January or early February, according to police.
He couldn't give us an exact time because they communicate via email or text message.
Now, we're going to have much more on this still developing story coming up on later editions of H&N and, of course, on your Hawaii News Now digital platforms.
A woman who lobbied Kauai politicians has been charged for acting illegally as a Russian agent. The U.S. Department of Justice said 61-year-old Elena Branson worked on behalf of the Russian government to advance Russian interest in the U.S. since 2011. Among the allegations, Branson is accused of lobbying politicians on Kauai to keep the name of the last remaining formerly Russian fort, which is significant to the Russian government, instead of changing it to a Hawaiian name. Officials said Branson organized a trip to Moscow for the Hawaii politicians to meet with high-ranking Russian government personnel. Court documents said Branson failed to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act for these lobbying efforts. Officials also said Branson left the U.S. for Russia in 2020 and remains at large. Now to the war on Ukraine. The U.S. continues to pile on the economic pressure on Russia as millions of civilians are trying to escape Ukraine. For the latest on the situation, we want to bring in Hawaii News Now's Chief National Political Analyst, Greta Van Susteren. Now, Greta, the House has finalized a bill that would put more than $13 billion toward the crisis. What does it cover, and does it have bipartisan support?
Well, it's part of the big spending bill because we're going to run out of money come midnight on Friday. So there's always a rush to create a omnibus spending bill, and contained within it, you rightly note, is there is aid for the Ukraine conflict, war, whatever you want to call it. And it's in the form of this, is that our U.S. military will get $6.5 billion. What's also included is $6.7 billion in humanitarian aid. And then there's about $120 million in it to improve sanctions on the Russians, on the oligarchs, trying to figure out how to seize their yachts and other items of great value. So that's what's contained. The aid package of about $13.6 billion is within the huge $1.5 trillion spending bill to fund the government.
Right, and yesterday President Biden announced that the U.S. will ban imports of Russian oil and other things, and we're seeing gas prices soaring at this time too. What can consumers expect to happen next?
Well, the truth is the gas prices have been rising for a number of factors unrelated to Russia, although they will also rise when the president imposed the sanctions yesterday. The question is how much are related to the sanctions. Hard to tell. We don't get a lot of our energy, our oil and petroleum products from Russia. Now, Western Europe does. We don't get as much, but certainly certainly it's going to have some impact on prices, because every time you limit the supply, and when you stop importing Russian oil, you are limiting the supply, naturally the prices go up. And the only way to compensate for that is to increase the supply of oil. But even if we were to try to increase the supply of oil, it takes a while to actually sort of get that oil online and into the pipelines to get to us. So people can expect that the price will go up, unclear how much, but the rise in price is not solely due to Russia. There are so many other factors involved in this, including inflation, including the fact that during the pandemic, all the oil producers stopped producing as much oil because the demand was down during the pandemic. Now people are returning to work, there's an increased demand, and we can't get the supply rolling as fast as the demand has come back online.
Right, and we know Vice President Kamala Harris is heading overseas. What's on her agenda?
She's got a tough couple days. She's going to be in Poland and Romania for 3 days, and she's going to meet with the Prime Minister and President of Poland. She's going to meet with the Prime Minister of Canada as well. Trudeau is also over there. And she's got to deal with sort of a thorny issue because Poland wanted to give all of its Soviet-era fighter jets, the MiG-29s, wanted to give it to the U.S., to Ramstein Air Force Base in Western Germany, and then have Germany turn it over to Ukraine. Well, the U.S. doesn't like this idea because, look, that does drag the U.S. into this. At least the U.S. fears it will, because Putin would say that if we are participating in doing that, we might be engaging them, and Putin might then and start getting more aggressive and more brutal than he already is. Look, today he blew up a hospital of children. So I mean, nothing will stop Putin. But if the U.S. gets dragged in a war, if Putin considers that this is a declaration of war by the United States by putting these planes from Ramstein Air Force Base into the air over Ukraine, well, who knows what to expect.
Absolutely. All right, Greta Van Susteren, Hawaii News Now's Chief National Political Analyst. Always good to see you.
Nice to talk to you.
New today, we've learned more federal funding has been earmarked to defuel the Red Hill tanks. Senator Brian Schatz announced that an additional $150 million has been allocated to permanently close the facility and clean up the contaminated water. This is in addition to the $100 million from last month, which was included in a larger government spending bill. You'll recall on Monday, the Pentagon announced that it will empty and permanently close the tanks. Well, Southwest Airlines has changed the way many of us fly to the mainland and to Inter-Island. Howard Dykes today on Sunrise talked to a Southwest executive about what to expect in the future.
Update from Andrew Watterson, who's the Chief Commercial Officer of Southwest Airlines. What a weird ride it's been for the past 2 years.
Oh, goodness gracious. Between the MAX grounding, COVID, oil, it's always tumultuous in this business.
Well, tell me this. What do you think is going to happen this year now that it seems like we're seeing the pandemic ease?
Well, we're not going to count it being over because we've had a lot of false dawns over the last 2 years. And so we're seeing definitely leisure demand is back to where it was pre-pandemic. But now for us, it's business demand is what it all turns on. And so it's about halfway back on the business side. and so businesses are slowly putting their people back out on the road, and that'll really define how this year goes for us.
You did a certain amount of expansion even during the pandemic here in Hawaii. How many employees do you have in the islands now?
We have just over 400 employees in the islands, and we're still hiring, so we've had good traction. We've raised our minimum wage we pay up to $17 an hour, goes all the way up to 32 for the more tenured folks on the ground, and so that's gave us good traction. So we're still looking to staff up, but so far so good.
So jobs, we're talking about jobs with strong benefits and strong wages and more to come. What are your plans for adding routes between here and the Pacific?
Well, we're pretty good right now with what we have, but what we're doing in the islands right now is a lot of executives with me, and we're talking to customers and stakeholders and understanding what people would like. And we've seen the concerns on over-tourism and such, so we may trim some trans-Pacific flights here and there, and then some of the flight timings for inter-island, we're getting some feedback on that, so we may adjust that. And based on the feedback we get this week, we'll go back to headquarters and maybe over the next week or two make changes to our flight schedules for the summer and the fall.
Any chance you'll be able to have direct service between here and Burbank? I know there are noise restrictions there that have kept a lot of other people from doing it.
Well, I'd love to be able to fly to Burbank. It's a short runway with some obstacles. There's a new generation of the aircraft we fly called the MAX 7 that's very high performance. And if that aircraft was delivered by Boeing perhaps late this year, early next, then it's certainly a route we would consider.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought you were going to just rule it out. So that's quite intriguing, actually. What about jet fuel? I mean, we've seen what happened with gasoline going up a nickel to 7 or 8 cents a gallon just last night. There isn't anything that extreme with jet fuel yet, but the prices are going to go up.
Yeah, so we are known for managing our finances very conservatively, and so as a result of that, we hedge our fuel. So we basically lock in the price ahead of time, and so 2/3 of our fuel needs for this year we've already kind of pre-purchased, and so that limits the impact of fuel prices to us. And so if the fuel price increase is short-lived, it was a great insurance policy. If it's a long-lived increase in fuel, then it just gives us a chance to adjust the company while we have these hedges in place.
Well, that's interesting. That means that if this lasts for months, the whole year, you can manage it. And there is, I think, a reasonably good chance that by the end of the year, the Russia crisis will ease to some degree.
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, we kind of caught everybody by surprise it started, so it's hard to predict when it ends.
Yeah.
But we're also a third hedge for next year, so we've got some protection for a while to adjust to it and wait and see what happens.
So you're here for good, you're still hiring, and the same crises that all the airlines are dealing with, you're dealing with.
That's correct. I mean, if there was a time we were going to leave, it would have been during the pandemic, but we kept flying to provide essential air service during the pandemic, and so I guess it's a sign of commitment to the islands for us.
Now to the pandemic, the state health department is reporting 154 new infections today. The breakdown includes 88 cases on Oahu and 20 on Maui. DOH says it will also now report COVID-19 data weekly instead of daily. That includes case counts and vaccination updates. Weekly reports will begin March 16th. That's next Wednesday. And Governor Ige announced he will be dropping the statewide mask mandate on March 25th, but even after that date, masks will still be required in some places. Casey Lund explains.
I was actually eating lunch here yesterday during Governor Ige's press conference, and there was definitely a feeling of hope in the whole restaurant. People thinking maybe the governor is going to end the mask mandate indoors effective immediately. Of course, that didn't happen, but at least we do have an expiration date, March 25th at the stroke of midnight. But I did come here today to talk to owner Don Murphy about how he's going to navigate that rule change.
Well, it's like you said, I was hoping it would be sooner, but that's fine. You know, it is what it is, as they say. But I'm glad to see he's lifting it, and we can hopefully start getting back to the old ways.
Are you going to lift it completely for guests and your staff?
For guests, we will, and our staff, I'm going to leave it up to them. They'll have the option to do whatever they want. And I'm sure there's going to be one or two that are going to want to continue to wear a mask, especially if it's a very crowded night or something.
Other businesses, like the Hawaii Theater, say that even after the mask mandate ends for indoor settings, they plan on keeping the rule around.
We at the theater will continue to ask people to wear masks when they're in close proximity in the theater because of the size of the venue and the number of people that we hold inside of the theater.
Other businesses like Blue Note Hawaii in Waikiki say they're trying to strike a different balance.
Masks will not be required for guests, but will be required for staff.
It's difficult because there are some people who don't feel safe coming to the club because we're not doing that anymore. But on the other hand, there are people that wouldn't come to the club because we were doing it.
Again, that indoor mask mandate sticking around until March 25th at 11:59 p.m. The governor also said yesterday that he'll be ready to reinstate the indoor mask policy should we get a new variant or cases surge here in Hawaii. I'm Casey Lund at Murphy's in downtown Honolulu. For now, we'll send things back to you.
Good old Merce.
Yeah, we love Don Murphy. Yeah. So many Oahu residents have been calling in about this, asking about two mysterious bright lights in the sky today and yesterday. And aviation officials say they are weather balloons. So similar balloons usually hover at around 65,000 feet, so they don't interfere with commercial flights, which are normally at the 30,000 foot range. It's not clear how high these specific balloons are, and viewers say they aren't moving very much. But the FAA says Raven Aerostar, a company that describes itself as a world leader in the design and manufacture of highly technical aerospace and defense solutions, is operating the balloons, and they notified the agency about the flights.
I was here this morning when all the calls were coming in, and we got a lot of images into our newsroom, so thank you to the viewers for that. Does look a little eerie out there. Yeah. All right, something else to keep an eye on for in the sky. Starlink. Remember those? We had spottings of those around here as well. 48 more SpaceX Starlink internet satellites were launched into orbit today. The Falcon 9 rocket carrying the satellites lifted off this morning from Florida. With today's batch, SpaceX now has deployed more than 2,000 Starlink satellites as part of a system the company says will eventually provide broadband internet service around the world.
And Jonathan, I just got an update from Raven Aerostar. This literally just came in. They said the balloons will probably be in the area until March 11th. So if you do see them again, that's what they are.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. Thanks for that update. All right, taking you live outside to look at our beautiful blue sky now. Let's see how the weather's going to be. Here's Guy Hoggy with an update.
We are expecting a hint of a trade wind breeze. That's through Friday. And then on Saturday, that's when we're expecting the winds to pick up. That's why those yellow streamlines start to show up. And they'll be running firm into the early part of next week. And then they're going to start to ease up again after the latter half of next week. So we're in for some pretty nice weather. But remember, there's still a thunderstorm possibility for the Big Island this afternoon. And then for the rest of us, we're in for some fairly dry conditions, especially from tomorrow on. And those light trade winds again through Friday, stronger winds Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Another celebrity collaboration to talk about. And this time it's with the rock band Kiss. Guess what they're getting into?
Alcohol.
Yeah, like so many others. The legendary rock band Kiss has launched its own brand of gin, my least favorite alcohol of all time. So gross.
Probably.
Named after their 1974 hit, described being 5 times distilled with no artificial flavors, Kiss Cold Gin joins the band's 3 styles of rum, who knew, and in their beverage portfolio. I have a Kiss story. When I got my driver's license, the you get in your car, turn on the radio, very first song I heard on the radio was Kiss, I Want to Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. Not a Kiss fan, but that song will always be ingrained in my past.
Very appropriate for your newfound freedom of driving.
Exactly. I thought it was a perfect song to play.
That's awesome.
What'd you find?
So Lululemon, known for its popular athletic apparel, is taking its first step into the shoe business. Now, the company announced it's releasing a new women's running shoe line called Bliss Feel. This is the first shoe Lululemon has released. Now, the sneakers cost $148 and they come in 10 colors. And the company says the new shoe will be available later this month in select stores across North America, the UK, and China, as well as online. The company says a different line of footwear for men will come out next year.
I didn't realize they had so many options for men until I recently walked by their store in Waikiki and saw a bunch of options.
I dropped dollars in that store, man.
Seems comfortable.
It is.
Comfortable.
It is.
All right, big day today, right?
Yeah, it's National Barbie Day, you guys. Co-founder of Mattel, Ruth Handler, created the 11-inch plastic doll on this day in 1959, and she debuted at the American International Toy Fair in New York. And since then, Barbie has become a role model for so many young girls to help inspire their career choices. You may remember she's done everything from teaching and nursing to being a CEO and an astronaut. And in 2016, she made the front cover of Time magazine.
Very, very busy. And, let's keep with this story. We found some really interesting facts regarding Barbie. Let's see if you knew some of these. Okay. So did you know that Barbie was co-designed with a defense industry engineer? Yeah, Handler, who you mentioned, the creator, assigned Mattel designer Jack Ryan to this role. Ryan had previously worked in the aerospace industry. He designed all sorts of things for the defense industry before joining Mattel. He did missile systems, and then he created this legendary Barbie.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you heard of Malibu Barbie? Well, Barbie ain't from Malibu. Try Wisconsin. According to Mattel's official Barbie website, Barbie is from the fictional town of Willows, Wisconsin. So the state of Wisconsin proudly claims her as a resident, and way back in the day, a version of the doll is even featured in the Wisconsin Historical Museum.
Yeah, and many celebrities actually starred in Barbie commercials. Check out who that is. Mila Kunis.
Okay,
And even Fergie was in one of them. In a classic Mattel commercial. And she didn't even get a smile, Barbie. Poor Barbie couldn't smile until 12 years after her debut with, as mentioned before, Malibu Barbie has teeth showing them. So she can actually see those pearly whites.
Yeah.
One more, right?
Yeah, and get this, Barbie has run for president 6 times. I did not know this. So she's run for president every election year since 1992, except the 1996 race.
All right, got my vote. All right, good news now. Tina Kraus is taking us to a shipwreck. Here's this report.
And off to the starboard side slowly.
These explorers spent weeks in Antarctica searching for a long-lost ship, sending underwater robots deep below the ice, hoping to make polar history. Their patience paid off when from a sea of darkness, cameras revealed a secret the ocean has kept hidden for over 100 years.
Nothing surpasses the moment of a great discovery, and this was a great discovery.
The discovery of Endurance, a 144-foot wooden ship that sank in 1915, perfectly preserved and frozen in time.
The wood is as fresh as the day the ship went down. You can see her paintwork, you can see the bolts, you can see the ship's name. Endurance curved across her stern, and beneath it the great five-pointed star.
Scientists found the ship nearly 10,000 feet underwater and just 4 miles from where crew logs show it went down. Those white circles are dinner plates left behind.
I've never, ever seen a wreck anything like as beautiful and as inspiring as this one.
British explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton and his 27-man crew managed to escape the ice-trapped ship. But it was a 10-month ordeal. They camped on sea ice until it melted and they could use lifeboats.
People will see those images and will connect to this extraordinary story from our history, the greatest story of Antarctic survival of all time.
That led to one of the most challenging shipwreck searches in history. Tina Kraus, CBS News.
See, I always wanted to be someone like that, like an Indiana Jones type, as an explorer, National Geographic. That was like one of my dream jobs, but
not underwater.
No, thank you. And also, I don't have that accent. Like what makes it work for those
you
guys.
You would need one.
Maybe I could work on that haircut. You guys, we wanted to share something really cute that happened to us today here at H&N. Check out this cake that was delivered to us.
Love it.
Yeah, our good friend Amir in Master Control, some friends of his, made this one and another one that I didn't have time to take a picture of before it was eaten up. But you can see the little camera there on top and the H&N logo. And the other one was color bars, and it was super cute.
Yeah, thank you so much to Liana for those cakes. Our newsroom loves treats.
Yep. You guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now. You just saw a lot of news still developing today. Get the latest on your H&N digital platforms. Ashley's going to have a wrap-up of all the news coming up at 1 at 4 on KHNL as well.